welcome to the Babalu Sports Show, where we talk about anything pertaining to Wisconsin sports. Thank you for joining me today on this podcast, and we will be focusing today on this Aaron Rodgers trade and a lot of the, in my opinion, circus that's pertaining to this trade. Um, so, in my opinion, this Packer trade is great for the Packers. I think we need to be heading into this youth movement that this trade will bring along with um, Jordan Love being the new leader of the offense, and with all the rookie receivers that we have, and we're going to obviously have to uh, upgrade the offensive line age wise pretty soon. So I just believe going forward, it's great for them to be getting this chemistry, and maybe we'll take a bump in the road this year. Maybe not. I mean, SI still, even with Jordan Love as our quarterback, has us number 15 right now in the power rankings, which I'm a bit surprised about, but it's I hope they're right. It's a good ranking from, in my opinion, higher than, like I said, I anticipated. So if we can be the 15th best team in the league with Jordan Love, just his first year running the offense, that's great. That would give us a pretty good season and give us a good shot at maybe even sneaking in the playoffs this year. Don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting that, but I'm just saying, as it pertains to a power rank of number 15, that's what you would expect. So, uh, this right now they're saying the Packers, and I just heard today that maybe this is not true anymore, that they're backing off on this, but go, the Packers were looking for and hoping to get the Jets first rounder, 13th pick overall. I think it's somewhat fair for Rodgers. I'm a little skeptic on it because of his age. I mean, I can see where the Jets would balk at that. The Jets also have two second round picks, 42nd and 43rd overall. Now, if I was running the show, which I don't have all the inside information on why or whatnot, but I would shoot for those two. Take the 42nd, 43rd overall pick if you can, and get off from as much of Rogers' contract as you can. His contract is sitting at 108, right around 108 million for both the 23 and 24 season. That's 59 million this year as a cap hit. Well, that's what he's getting. And then it would save the Packers cap hit of 40.7 million if we traded him. And with this 42nd, 43rd overall pick, you could hit the Packers this week lost Robert Tunyon to the Bears. Mercedes Lewis is still unsigned, and with his age and whatnot, and the fact that Rodgers is trying to get him to go to New York, I don't see us signing Mercedes Lewis. So that's leaving us with what? Josiah DeGura, which I think could be a good player for the team. I think he, just like Robert Tunyon, was underutilized, but he's more in your realm of tight end fullback, what an old fullback would have been. He's more in that realm where he's more of a second, not even second, third or fourth option, just a safety valve type of reception guy. He's not going downfield too much, or at least as he's been used so far, he's not going downfield too much for a longer pass. Uh, but he is the heck of a blocker. And then you got um, Tyler Davis, but he's more special teams than anything so far. I mean, all this is going to change now with Love being the quarterback and Rodgers not there, and the new chemistry that they're all going to work out. But that's what they are. And where I'm going with this is I would really like to see the Packers going for tight end off the bat. Maybe um, Darnell Washington, the tight end from Georgia. He's got championship 2 year being at Georgia. He's got the two championships under his belt, so he's got kind of the winning attitude maybe that he could bring in. So he is more blocking than he is a receiver, but I've heard through reports from the combine that he surprised a lot of people with his pass catching ability. He didn't need to show that much in Georgia because they had two or three other tight ends. Two of them, and names and stuff escape me. I didn't really look that up, but two of them were really good downfield catching, and so his main job and focus there was blocking. But the coaches and stuff say that he could have been a pass catcher, receiving tight end if they needed him to. He is what about 6'7", 264 pounds. But what is impressive, and another reason they point toward the possibility of him being a good pass catcher, is he's got 11-inch hands. Those are massive hands. I guess the second largest in combine history. And he also had the largest wingspan at 83 and let me get this one right, 83 and 3/4 wingspan, which is the largest that they've ever seen at the combines. So all that together with his being young and stuff, really points to the possibility of him being a good pass catcher. And if he's not, well, he's a good blocking tight end. And we're losing that a little bit with Mercedes Lewis, so it would be good to pick that up. And first round draft pick, well, he would be second round draft pick because we're trying to get there. In my scenario, we're getting their 2 second round picks, but we're also losing or gaining all that cap space. So that's the route I would go. I'd forget about the first round pick. Just go for those two and grab Darnell Washington, which I would figure would be available to us at that point in time. If not, okay, then you go toward whatever else you need: offensive line help, defensive line help, safety. Scenes that we've lost our safeties. That would be my focus. That's where I would like to see them go. Whether or not that happens, obviously, who knows? And I mean, who knows what happens between now and then? They could lose somebody else that they need to cover up. We wouldn't pick up a kicker in the draft, especially that early. But there's talk that Mason Crosby, who in my last podcast I told you how much I would like to see him stay, there's talk that just because of the numbers crunch that he may not be there next year. We may be looking at a new kicker. So there are things that could pop up that would change this. But right now, looking at the team as it is, I would love to see that happen. And you could do that with the 42nd or 43rd overall pick. Now, there's some other, to me, statements that were made during that were attributed to Rodgers. And I just say it that way because, I mean, I wasn't there firsthand, but these are comments that were attributed to him. The fact that he came out and said he was the best Packer ever. I would like to have known in what context that was. Is he talking, does he mean stats-wise he's the best Packer ever? Does he mean in importance? Is he talking just players, or is he talking best Packer ever, management, players, everything? Because in my mind, he's not either, no matter how he was referring to it. It's just that if If you're talking importance, that's even more ridiculous to me than just the best player ever. We have got what you got: Bart Starr, Reggie White, Don Hudson, Favre, Horning, Nitschke. Then if you're going into player coaches, people, you got Lambo, you got Lombardi. There's just so many other people. I don't really get it. I don't believe that you can fairly compare players and coaches from different eras because there's just been way too many things that have changed. Defense. Look at the difference in defense now compared to even when Favre was playing. You can defense. You got 5 yards to do a bump, and it can't be an over aggressive bump. It can't be. You can't touch them hardly at all going downfield. The idea of the NFL was to make this game a little more points because that's what the fans want, more yards, more. So to compare different eras, you really can't, because your quarterback now today is going to have probably more yards, better completion percentage, because the defense can't be blanketed like they could back in the day. Leroy Butler, for instance, he could be almost draped over a guy, even touching him, as long as he wasn't changing their path and as long as he got his hand on the ball. Now that doesn't matter. Now you cannot. Touching the ball gives you a little more leeway, but you can't drape yourself on a player now. So you don't have to. You can put a ball as, say, for instance, you're going down the sidelines. If you could keep the ball inside a little bit more now than you used to be able to, because that receiver cannot go through that. Sorry, that defensive back can't go through the receiver to get to that ball. Where just a few years back, you could practically run a receiver over as long as you got your hands on that ball. As long as there was a possibility, as long as you were looking back and there was a possibility to get your hands on the ball. So interceptions, completion percentages, they're all going to be higher now than they were just for that mere fact right there. Also, nowadays, you have a lot more indoor play than you did back then. So again, I'm not saying the quarterbacks were better back then or better now. I'm just saying statistic-wise, the stats are going to be a little easier to grab nowadays than they were back then. Do I think Tom Brady could play back then and still have great stats? Most definitely. Aaron Rodgers? Most definitely. But to say, just for instance, Aaron Rodgers is better than Brett Favre because his numbers are better, I don't agree with that one bit. I don't agree that interception rate or quarterback rating makes you a better quarterback. Wins and losses? Probably, because each era is playing against another team that's playing in the same era. So where you're ranked in your era makes a difference. So if we're going to compare Rodgers and Favre, both of them were ranked as one of the best quarterbacks in their era. So yes, you could kind of compare where you stand in your rankings of your era. If we want to throw Bart Starr in that category, they weren't even hardly throwing the ball back when he was around. So how do you compare him to the quarterbacks now? Again, probably just on championships and how you ranked as far as the other quarterbacks of your time. Not of the quarterbacks of all time, but of the quarterbacks of your time. So I did do a little bit of research, and I want to get those numbers up because, yes, this is my podcast here focuses on my opinion, obviously, but I want to make sure that I'm giving you correct information while I tell you what my opinions are, right? So if we're looking at things stat wise, because I kind of went off that route right now. Um, Favre had his 16 seasons. Rodgers had his 18 seasons. 255 games for Favre compared to 230 games for Rodgers. So stat wise, Favre threw for more yards, 61, just over 61,000 yards, 61 and a half. And Rodgers had just over 59,000, but Rodgers had almost 4,000 rushing, where Favre only had two. TD wise, Favre had 442, um, passing, 14 rushing. Rodgers had 475 passing and another 35 rushing. So touchdowns is well in favor of Rodgers. Interceptions, obviously, well in favor of Rodgers. And quarterback rating, 85.8 to 103.6. Well in favor of Rodgers that way. But when you go to looking at playoffs, they're dead even. 5,855 Favre to 5,894 to Rodgers. So pretty close to even in their yards passing. TDs 45 to 44 for Rodgers. Interceptions, obviously, Favre threw more, 30 to just 13 for Rodgers. And um, passer rating 100.1 for Rodgers to, I don't even have down what Favre had. I believe it was like 84 or something like that. Record wise, though, 12 and 10, identical. One championship apiece. Favre had 3 MVPs. Rodgers just got his fourth. So, I mean, Rodgers was a Super Bowl MVP too. So, if you're going just stats wise, I would say Rodgers. But me personally, I would take Favre. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'll admit Favre is one of my favorite all-time players. Rodgers, not so much. As a Green Bay player, I'm a fan of him as a player. Just like I am just about anybody that puts on the green and gold. I'm a fan of you. But there's a difference between being a fan of your playing and being an overall fan. And personality and stuff, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I can't connect with him as a person outside of football. Favre, I could, um, but I can say that for a lot of Packer players. So it's not just Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Charles Martin. I was a fan of his until the whole Jim McMahon hurting him after the play. That was it. I was done. Of course, so were the Packers. So, um, but this is not just comparing Favre and Rodgers. Let's add Bart Starr in there now. Okay. Obviously, Starr has nowhere near the yardage that either Favre or Rodgers had, and we wouldn't expect him to. He had 24,718 yards passing, 152 TDs, 128 interceptions, 80.5 quarterback rating, which is even lower than Favre's quarterback rating. But again, you're not throwing the ball much back then. There's a whole different game, and they were even more physical then than they were during Favre's time. He spent 16 seasons, 196 games. But now here's the big but. When you go to playoffs, yeah, he only had 1,753 yards, 15 TDs, only 3 interceptions, a passer rating of 104.8, which is well above even Rodgers' passer rating. And we're talking about the era that he played in, that passer rating is super. He also had 5 championships, season MVP, and 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and a 9-1 record. A stat that most people probably don't look at is when he retired, he had a 57.4% completion percentage, which was at that time an NFL record. So I'm going to argue that, well, Rodgers isn't even the best quarterback that we've had of all time. I would still put Starr there. Again, my favorite was Favre. Little Starr's right behind him. I still would put Starr as far as the best quarterback in Packer history. It's Starr for me. I mean, hands down championships, um, rising to the occasion when you're going for the championships and when the game's on the line. Um, so that's my take on when we're just talking stats. What about if he's talking most important best Packer of all time because of their importance to the team? There, I have problems with it too because how do you say he's more important than Lambeau, who helped start the Packers, or all the plethora of players in the early '60s that helped the Packers grow their name and rise to legendary status? What about Favre? Favre brought in Reggie um, to help bring us out of what the '70s and '80s and all those poor years. Reggie is quoted as saying the only reason he came to Green Bay was for Favre. And now, when Reggie came here, of course, he changed free agency. He changed the way the culture of the veterans coming to Green Bay. So maybe it should be Reggie. What would the Roger era look like without Favre and Reggie coming to Green Bay? He wouldn't have had the players that he's got now. So, I mean, I'll admit, Rodgers and company has the people he's had has carried on that newfound destination of Green Bay because came to play with Rodgers after that. But would that have happened without the Favre and Reggie era? So again, I don't believe in comparing players from different eras and who's the best and most important. I don't agree with any of that. But if I had to do it, this is what I would believe. I mean, it blows my mind for someone to have an ego enough to say I'm the best. That's that's not my realm of thinking, so it's hard for me to to fathom that. But what's even worse for me is when he said he's bled green and gold like I bled bleed. He's been quoted saying, "I bleed green and gold more than anyone ever." Completely and totally bogus statement. I could not think of someone that bled green and gold more than Bart Starr, and that's not just because of my liking of him and you know what I feel of him or Rodgers. How can any player, say that they've bled green and gold more than Starr when Starr was a player, he was a coach, and then who's been a better ambassador after, until his passing, who was a better ambassador than Bart Starr? And who most, no, I shouldn't say that. I would believe a majority out there when you talk about the Packers, one of the first people that come to mind is Starr. And how long ago did Starr play? So, and who dedicated more time to the Packers than Bart Starr without saying negative things about it? Look at how bad his time was coaching. And could you imagine Starr saying anything negative toward the Packers or trying to bring any kind of negative realm, negative image to the Packers? You can't tell me you bleed in green gold and then bring negativity into the equation. So obviously, I have a strong opinion on that, and that's my opinion. But there's no way you can. That is such an out there statement that I can't believe you would even say something like that. So that's my rant on it. What is your guys' thoughts on that? Leave them in the comments. I will get back to you. I'm sure others would like to read about it too. So, with that, coming up, I'm going to, within the next couple days, because baseball season starts in what, we're just the baseball season starts tomorrow, so let's I will try and get within the next couple of days. I will try and get a podcast up on my outlook on the Brewers. We got the Badger game that did not go the way any of us wanted to last night. I'll get something out on the Badgers too. I'll try and get these rolling out here a little more frequently than I'm doing, and with a little more, try and get a little more excitement in there. I'm going to do a little less game talking, a little more just opinion. It's coming out to you. Liven this up a little bit for us. So, thank you for listening to the podcast here today. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share, and keep get some comments going in there, and we'll try and get this thing rolling and have some good conversation. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. Till next time, this is Bob on the Babaloo Sports Show. Thank you.